That's not even my most viral video. My most viral video was correcting a similar thought that says if you dream about someone, it means that they're thinking about you in their waking life. That one got 28 million views. It has been watched 130,385 hours, 10 minutes, and 13 seconds. If you pressed play today, that video wouldn't finish playing for the next 14.8 years. All right, we're good to go? Yeah, thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name's Jesse Lyon. I do a lot of different things. My day job is as a licensed mental health counselor in Central Florida. I own a private practice there with a couple offices, but I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, and I teach the class that certifies therapists to use hypnosis for trauma recovery. But what I'm here to talk to you today about is my social media presence. I am the face behind Lyon Mental Health on all the different social media platforms, and so today I'm going to share a little bit with you about the way that we can present the topic of dreams and mental health to an audience, so that way the general public can digest it, and we can present it in a form that is understandable to them, that's already inside of their hands. So let's do it. Well, I only had 2 friends growing up. I'd never set foot in a public school until my master's degree at 19. So when I found social media, it never was a hobby for me. I always came to it seeing it as a tool. You know, I think most people find social media as just a part of their natural day-to-day expression of the way that they connect with other people. But that was never the way that I grew up with it. That was never a part of my experience with it. And so when I started a company, I saw it as a tool to help me connect with people about the mission and about the topics that I wanted to share that would hopefully bring them some help and healing. And so since then, I've posted 1,742 TikTok videos. Well, since this conference, it would be more than that, because I've posted while I've been here. I've posted 910 Instagram posts and 494 YouTube videos, for a grand total of 3,146 times that I've pressed post. That's a lot of practice. And so I've learned some things, and I've made some mistakes, and I would like to share those with you today. So, the first thing that we have to do when you're thinking about how to share a message and how to communicate with people is you have to think about, well, okay, who's my audience? Who am I communicating with here? And so if you look at the analytics of what you find on my page, the audience is predominantly female. They're usually in their 30s, 79% versus 21% male. They live in the United States, 56% are in the US, 5% in the Philippines, 4.4% in Canada, 2.5% in the UK, and 2.3% in Australia. And they're all troubled by their dreams. They have a very consistent sort of emotion when they come to my page. Sadness and hopelessness, being troubled by their dreams. And because they're troubled by their dreams, they usually end up in this conflict with themselves, where they've learned to distrust their own mind as they fall asleep. And so they're looking for answers. They're struggling to really feel safe and okay with themselves. And this usually is kind of comorbid with some kind of mental health diagnosis, maybe depression, anxiety, bipolar. And so they're struggling, and they're feeling very much at the end of their rope. And so oftentimes, as many of us know, we turn to social media as a way to kind of turn our brains off. I don't want to think about everything that happened today, all of the frustrating things that I'm going through. And so turning that brain off, here they are scrolling, and here's somebody who suggests maybe you can care for yourself. Maybe there are some answers that you can find about what's going on. So what do they want? Well, they want these answers. They want to know something that's going to help them today. They're frustrated. They're not very willing to put in a lot of effort because they've tried so many things. And people have given up on them. Their doctor has told them that they don't know what to do. They can't tell you why you have this chronic pain. And so they want answers. But more than they want answers, they want connection. They've felt not only disconnected from the people that they go to in their community, but because they've been rejected by those people who they're reaching out to in their community, they feel a rejection and a loss of connection with themselves. And so really, I think when we're orienting ourselves to the way that we can portray and communicate this topic to the general public, we have to remember it all really goes back to that connection. The answers are just a way to say, hey, allow me to connect with you. And so by giving them some answers, by kind of positing a possible solution, hey, maybe we can have a dialogue here, more than just information, it's, wow, this is a person who cares enough to make a video, cares enough to share this with me when I'm at the end of my day and I'm struggling and I'm burnt out. And that inspires confidence, because really, in that connection, once they feel accepted again and start to accept themselves, that confidence starts to come back into their hearts. And that's really, really what they want. Now, why? Like I'm saying, they're frustrated, misunderstood. And more than that, they're ashamed. They're like, nobody understands my problem. I can't share this with anybody else. I share it with my friends all the time, and they get frustrated because this is all I talk about. I'm looking for answers. And usually this comes from frustration with the medical or scientific field, but then also frustration with the spiritual field, where there have been so many people who are dogmatic or religious about what they say. This is what this means, this is why you're having it, and it just doesn't connect with them. And so they miss that topic because, again, remember, the what is connection. And so when they find this, and when I'm thinking about my audience, when I'm crafting a video, I'm trying to think specifically where they are going to find themselves. Female, in their 30s, struggling, feeling hopeless, depressed, looking for answers. Okay, so that's who the audience is. But how do we speak to them? If that's who the target is, how are we going to share this message with them? How do people absorb this information, and what communication style most fits with the content being delivered? Well, after thousands of times of posting content, I've learned some things to do, and I've learned some things definitely not to do. So let's start with do. You have to help when you're thinking about how to communicate and how to make a video or how to make content online. You have to think about how to help practically. If we get bogged down in a lot of the nuances of, well, we don't know really what quite this is, we really have these questions still, and we start there, well, we're just feeding more into the problem that they have, and they start to get discouraged, to be honest, because here it is, I haven't been able to find a solution for myself, and now you're telling me that science has more questions than answers for me too? It's very easy to scroll next if that video or the way that that content is being portrayed is asking me more questions than it is connecting with me. And it has to be clear. I think a lot of times when I'm looking at other people's media and I'm looking to be better myself, sometimes I'll talk very broadly, maybe very esoteric, ethereal about the topic in general, and that doesn't help. I need something to meet me here where I am today, because think about the audience again. This is somebody who probably a single mother, probably by themselves, not feeling very supported by the community, and so if you're talking to me about ideas, I'm too busy. I'm trying to pay my rent. But if you can meet me with a clear, concise, and practical idea, there's something there. They'll watch. They're looking for that. They're desperate for this information. And then connect. And connection is kind of funny, because you can do it in two ways. It doesn't have to be just positive. Sometimes, in some of my best videos, will be the ones where I'll stitch somebody else's video with something I disagree with, and then I'll tell my opinion. And so it's intrinsically kind of negative. But you think about it, the way that people and attention works, negative content, according to some studies, can be 7 times more attention-grabbing than the positive stuff. And so it's about connection, but it doesn't have to be, and we don't want to get confused with thinking that connection is just positive. It's like, hey, let's have a conversation. Because again, by saying something and by putting this content out there, even if it's something I disagree with, the comment section is open, and I invite them to talk with me. Tell me why I'm wrong. That's great. I love that. That's not going to hurt my feelings. And even by doing that, like by showing a presence where it's okay to be negative, it's okay to contradict me, I'm showing, hey, you're accepted even if you don't agree with me. I just want to have a conversation with you. I want to get to know who you are. That's a viral presence. Now, some don'ts. Some don'ts are, you don't want to be complicated. The way that my brain works, I very often can give way more details than anybody else really cares to know about. And so my favorite is, and I'm recording this and my wife will laugh at me, I'll show her a video. I'm so proud of it. I've researched it so much. I looked up all the studies and things, and I showed her, and she's like, babe, I don't know what you said after the first 3 seconds. I stopped listening. I glazed over. You're standing there, so I kept watching it. But I'm like, well, damn. Let me put my ego aside for a second. And that's valuable information, though. It's like, okay, I live in this field. The details that are exciting to me are not exciting to everybody else. The stuff that oftentimes we scroll by because we think it's very elementary is probably the stuff that they really, really need. Because think about just the lack of really quality information that exists online. And so, I think a lot of us in this room can be very, very privileged because we have some information and we get to live in this world and understand things that the general public really doesn't understand. And so I think one of the mistakes that we can tend to make is by being too complicated about the message that we're trying to send. Stick with one thing and communicate it simply and well in a practical way that they can get. Don't over-explain. Say it once, and if anything, if I could give some advice about voice, if anything, don't even fully explain the idea. Because again, the focus of the audience and the focus of the content is connection. So if I leave you with 3/4 of the total explanation, you got them there. Now we're going to have a conversation, which, if you think about it, I believe is even better than the alternative. If I give you the full explanation and then am done with it, I don't inspire personal curiosity. I take full responsibility for understanding what this thing is by giving you 3/4 of the topic and then inviting you to fill in the conclusion. I'm empowering that audience and saying, you don't need me to be the expert. You just need me to inspire some curiosity so you can find yourself again. I think it's a really beautiful thing. Okay. Let me scroll. So we know who it is, and we know how to speak to them, but how should you share information in a way that overcomes an ever-decreasing attention span? As we know, social media has changed the landscape quite a bit, especially since COVID and TikTok, and that's really where my audience is. I guess I should have said that in the beginning, but my social media presence is 2.5 million followers on TikTok. And so there's been some experience trying to cultivate and keep that audience together. And the attention span is very short, especially on that platform. You have 1 to 2 seconds. If you're really lucky, you get 3. That's someone really giving you that extra effort. I'm going to listen to you for 3 seconds before I decide if I'm going to watch through this video altogether. Now, I think a lot of people get frustrated with that. That is very short, right? But I would encourage us, rather than get frustrated, it's just the way that attention is going to be. It's just the natural change. And if you really think about it, first impressions, when you meet somebody and you look at kind of the research behind first impressions, we make those first impressions in 1 to 2 seconds. So really, the thing that we're seeing through social media is no different than the way that we make initial opinions about meeting somebody in person. How was that handshake? They're kind of weird. It's really hard to change that impression after it's been made. And so I think by understanding just the way that human attention naturally is, I think you can have a much better success and a much better time on social media. And I would even argue that this is a good thing for us, right? It's not that, I don't believe attention really is changing that much. I think the difference is there's such a vast amount of content readily available now that I get to be, as a consumer, much more selective about what I'm going to spend the currency of my time on. If there's not a lot of options, well, I'm going to watch this video to the end. But there's thousands of options. I just have to scroll my thumb. And so by recognizing that you get 1 to 2 seconds, that's good for us, because it means that as content creators, as researchers, and as people who are putting out quality information, we have to learn how to communicate very effectively. And it means that we have to communicate in an effective way, so that way the person we're communicating to has an added benefit as well. Instead of setting up a topic for 30 seconds, I have to tell you quickly and succinctly what the topic is and give you the valuable data right away. That's making us so much more effective in the way that we're delivering information. Now, it can be frustrating, but I would encourage us to rise to that challenge instead of demonizing the general public. So there's a great format that works. If you're ever looking to kind of do some of this stuff yourself, don't overcomplicate it. It's very simple. A hook, you have to get them interested, give them a couple seconds of information, give them the valuable data, and then have one call to action, just one. You know, sometimes you see YouTube videos, they say like, comment, and subscribe. That's too many. Like, comment, subscribe. 3 things, they're gonna do 0. But if you say, hey, if this video's been helpful to you, just tap that follow button, would you? I'd like to show up on your page and help you more often. Well, all right, that's not too hard. And so by following a very simple format, you can engage in this attention, and it can be wildly effective. Okay. So, that's the general, but there's definitely some topics that are really popular with this group. And so I think I have maybe frustration's too strong of a word, but one of the frustrations that I have is oftentimes the things that I hear and the things that people will research and lecture on, they're so niche, and they're so, well, they're very exciting to those in the field, but to the general public, they're like, how's that help my day-to-day life when I'm just burnt out, frustrated, I have people counting on me, and I don't feel like I'm being helped? And so what comes up over and over again, and I've had really the fortunate opportunity to be involved in some different companies and be involved in so many interactions online, the number one topic that comes up all the time is relationships. Family, exes, boyfriends, girlfriends, and sex come up all the time. Like that's number one by far, not even close. And so if you can talk with someone about their dreams regarding relationships and give them some valuable ways to start to think about that in a new and empowering way, they'll listen because they're desperate for it. And then very close to relationships is nightmares. People are really struggling with their dreams. I mean, I started making content in 2020 when the pandemic was going on, and we know how those nightmares were. They were tough. And so if you find a voice online when you're struggling with these nightmares that can communicate saying, hey, like maybe there's some valuable information in those nightmares, you don't have to just be scared of them. You can be brave enough to find some meaning in that and to learn something through it. That's really empowering, and it gives them a connection and the confidence that they're looking for. And then, of course, the greater topic of mental health. If you can relate it to mental health, people are much more understanding of that topic now. Mental health is so much more in the positive spotlight, and a term that people are understanding and knowing that when you can relate dream content to their mental health and show them how it can be helpful, it's a really powerful topic. And then parasomnias. On my page, I get a lot of questions about parasomnias, like what is sleep paralysis, what's a hypnagogic hallucination, what's exploding head syndrome, and they love that stuff because it's really interesting and it sparks curiosity. It's strange, it's wild, you know. It's like out of a fairy tale. And so they can also be really gripping and really anxiety producing. And as we know, a lot of these parasomnias relate directly to mental health. If someone's anxious and depressed, they're probably going to experience a lot more of these sleep problems. Okay. Now I think part of my favorite are the myths. So some of the ones that I find online, I mean, gosh, social media is so full of poor information, just downright wrong information. And so there's no shortage of opportunity to be able to, well, at least engage in the conversation and probably correct that information. You know, there's a lot of content creators online who are not afraid to just follow this pattern that I'm talking about, but have zero regard for the information that they're actually sharing. Right? So it's like, well, people want answers. People want to kind of be told at least a direction to start to go. And so if I can make up some not real answer that satisfies those two things, well, they're so desperate for the content that they don't do the effort of looking into, well, is this really real? See what I'm saying? So viral fear is huge, right? I can't tell you the number of times people in my comment section, they're like, well, I had a dream of my teeth falling out. That means a relative of mine is going to die. All the time. And I'm like, why? there's a lot of other ways that you could go about interpreting that and learning what your mind is trying to say. You're probably stressed, yes, but I don't think we need to jump right to your grandma's going to die. Like in the situation you're in, that's rough, that's difficult. Or other ones where it's like, gosh, so many. If you see a snake, it means this. If you see a spider, it means that. It's all these negative things. And as we know, negative is very, very clickable, So there's a huge opportunity to correct these myths, and I really enjoy that of starting the conversation. I don't even mind so much. I do mind the misinformation, but I love that can be a starting point for my platform of saying, hey, there's a greater conversation here. You don't just have to accept this is 100% what it is. Because a lot of it's clickbait. And if it's not clickbait, viral fear stuff, it's usually spiritual and religious. And spirituality is okay, but the religious part is what gets dogmatic. Thanks. They'll go right to, it absolutely means this, no questions about it. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. It shuts down the conversation that person's going to have within themselves. And so on this topic, like the astral projection topics, like the alternate planes, I love that if you're spiritual and that's a part of the way that you think about dreams and interpret them, I love that for you. My only concern, my problem is when people try and dictate what other people should think about their dreams. That's not okay with me, right? And I take a very similar stance to Stephen LaBerge, who talks about astral projection being a very problematic thought and idea, because when we introduce to other people that their minds are not safe, that when you go to bed, there's this opportunity for someone to enter into your mind and manipulate you, that creates fear about being myself. And that's you end up manifesting nightmares on their own because you're inspiring fear as you go to sleep. And so those have been overwhelmingly my most viral videos. I had a video that corrected a myth saying one-to-one correlation. If you dream about your ex in your dream, it means that they're thinking about you in their waking life. I made a correction to that. It got 11 million views. It has been watched 92,322 hours, 14 minutes, and 5 seconds. If you set up my phone and pressed play on that video, the amount of times that video has been watched, you'd have to let it play for 10 and a half years. That's not even my most viral video. My most viral video was correcting a similar thought that says if you dream about someone, it means that they're thinking about you in their waking life. That one got 28 million views. It has been watched 130,385 hours, 10 minutes, and 13 seconds. If you pressed play today, that video wouldn't finish playing for the next 14.8 years. People want the information. There's no shortage of attention out there, but you have to connect with them and communicate with them in a way that meets them and recognizes, hey, I see what you're going through and I care enough to give you that information in the way that you need it. Super important. I got like 5 minutes left? Yeah? All right, cool. So I get my fair share of hate online. And that is, I'm going to be honest, you might think I'm a little tongue-in-cheek saying this, but I love it. I love it because, again, think about this. A lot of people on my page will come to my comment section because every social media has a comment section. It's for engagement. And so people on my comment section will say, dream interpretation is a pseudoscience. Okay, sure. But what I'm trying to do is help someone engage and start to think about and to care for themselves, right? And so, dream interpretation, if you think about it this particular way, is a pseudoscience, but there's a lot of things that dreams do tell us from the research. If you have this kind of experience, it probably means this kind of thing. They're related. And so, no, it's not. But think about it. I don't even mind that comment because someone has taken the time to go and look at the research and tell me I'm fake. We got people to read research who normally wouldn't read research in any other context. That's a win for me. I'm not even mad about it. Or they come in and they say, your information is not research-based. That's not true. I read a lot of research articles. I mean, I'm in the medical profession. I'm in the field. So a lot of people think I'm just some teenager who's doing things, which is not true. Like, I own a counseling practice. I see people all the time struggling through these, and it's personal information. But again, we're engaging in a conversation. Like, that's the point. There's a couple of things. Dreams are from spirits. Dreams connect us to the astral plane. Or people say, I don't dream. Dreams are just nonsense. I don't dream. It's just bogus. Again, that's great. That's great, because we're starting a conversation. And then by someone taking the time to say, I don't dream in my comment section, I must have excited them enough or inspired them enough to take the time and be like, they're being critical of me saying I don't dream. But what they're really telling me in that comment is, why am I not like everybody else? Why am I left out? You're talking about all these cool things, but I don't experience that. And so instead of responding with aggression back, I said, well, hey, let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation. Let's find where your dreams went. When did that stop for you? And so now I've met them where they're at. I'm gaining connection, and they're open to a lot more information than they would be otherwise. So I feel like I'm probably about out of time. So if you want to continue the conversation, sweet. Questions are at the end. Yes, of course.
I'm interrupting your flow.
So if you want to check it out, if you want to leave me a comment telling me I'm full of baloney myself, I would love it. Please do. Those are all the connections there. I hope that has inspired you. On my channel, we have a tagline. We have kind of a sentence that encapsulates really the mission of what we're trying to do. And so I always say, your mind is not against you. It's just misunderstood. My hope is that I could help people fall in love with their minds again. One of the biggest problems that I see is that people start to have a war within themselves, being frustrated with their own minds, with their own bodies, with their own mental health. And so when we can change that relationship and engage in the conversation in a viral and social media way where everyone's got that phone in their hand already, and I can start to inspire them to say, well, maybe I'm not the problem. Maybe I just need to listen to myself a little bit better. And you help people start to fall in love with themselves, they start to fall in love with the world again, and things become much more peaceful. And so that's the mission. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I hope it's been helpful. Yeah, come on up, though. Come on up, though. It's just for everybody.
This question and answer period is for all three of us. Just ask whoever would like to ask your question.
Jesse?
Man, they just keep telling you to wait, don't they?
I'm okay. I'm an OG. No old guys can wait.
Hey, I can wait too. I'm excited for it.
Listen,
Tell me about it.
I live in a different universe than you, and I came, it was all interesting, but for you particularly, I avoid social media like the fucking plague. I don't even go to Facebook. I'm embarrassed. I don't even go to Facebook. I do that to protect my mental health. I go to YouTube too much, but the rest of it, I shun. And I'm glad you're saying millions of people need information, they need encouragement, they're bombarded by crap, and you're trying to correct, encourage in your own way, and if you're going to do it, that's how you do it. So my question is, enough of my comment, my question is, if I, as an OG who is totally alienated from most people today, all the younger people do it, and even people not young do it, where would I begin to engage social media without going crazy? Where would I begin to go?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I really am. Have you ever had a FaceTime call? Or some kind of video call?
My friend, I use other things.
I mean, but you've had a video call, yes?
Yes.
It's just like that. Think about the people in your life that you are connected to, the people that look to you for answers and for encouragement. Talk to them and turn on your phone, press record, and tell them something that will help them right where they are today, and then click post. And if nobody sees it, it's fine. But if one person sees it and it makes them smile, you made the world a better place. And so I think a lot of people get really, really confused and frustrated because they're like, well, how do I go, this big audience and all this stuff. That's not the point. And I think the reason that I've been successful is that wasn't the point. It was, hey, there's a few people who I can't connect with because of COVID, that I want to make sure that they know what they can be doing, how they can be caring for themselves. And so I made videos about like what you can do during COVID to help your mental health. And so it was because I took care of my community, they took care of me. And so it's the same for anybody. Find your people and speak to them.
Hi, this is a message for Jesse. Your insignia is very evocative with the lion. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, it is evocative. Maybe we can put it back up later. It's I had an actually Australian artist drew that for me. It's charcoal on paper, and then turned it into a digital format. It's my logo. It's an image of a lion with half the face torn away, and underneath is a human skull. And so it is very suggestive. I mean, my last name's Lyon, so that makes sense. Lyon instead of an I. But the idea behind it is there's a face, there's confidence and courage that we show, but underneath there's something deeper. There's a substructure that is worth exploring that makes us human. Yeah, thanks.
The question's for Jesse. Hook information, call to action. Would you mind? I'm sure I'll get up there and have a look, but can you describe that a little bit more, please?
Yeah.
Also, question B. So where are you going with this? So you want engagement, so you engage them. Mm-hmm. Are you trying to do, what are you trying to do? What's your...
I kind of let them lead me a little bit, so they tell me they want courses on learning more about mental health and kind of like understanding the research, so I make that for them. They tell me they want to know more about what hypnotherapy is, so I make that for them. So I think the ultimate goal is to inspire, and so maybe this is a call to the room. If any researchers or individuals want to collaborate, I would be very excited to do that because there's an audience eager for the information. I think I've found a way to share that information effectively, but I also I'm making content all the time. I don't have the time to do the research, so if someone wants to partner and kind of work on these things together, that would be great. But the goal is to help. And so I think there's a lot of ways that we can help. So we do that.
Short, sharp kind of interactions? You don't go back and forth for a week or two.
No. So there's kind of a layered system, right? So TikTok, short, sharp interactions, absolutely. But then I'll lead them to YouTube. That's like a 10-minute conversation. Then I'll lead them to an online course. That's an hour conversation. Then I'll lead them to my Discord server, which is a back and forth where we're chatting through text. So there's layers, depending on how deep an individual wants to go into the topics and what kind of level of attention they need, there's layers in order to give them that attention effectively. When it comes to hooks, like to answer that second part of the question, what the general public is interested in changes, so meet them in that, but a great way to start a hook is to tell them something that is going to be helpful for them right away. So in the beginning of the video, like these are the top 3 questions that you should be asking your dreams. That's a great hook. Or by inciting some kind of question for themselves. Do you know?
Problem solution?
Problem solution is good, yeah. FOMO is another great one. I made a video the other day. I'm like, these are the top 3 things your therapist isn't telling you, but your dreams are. That's a good hook. It gains interest. So things like that, questions and meeting them where they're at. Very short, 1 to 2 seconds.
Hi. Very quickly, I'm a researcher at Harvard, and I might be interested in helping you with that. And
I would be so excited.
if I decided not, I could put you together with some other people.
Yeah, please.
But that's not what I came up to Mike to say. So sign me for your purpose.
What a tease.
Wearing my other hat, I am the incoming IASD president, and I was curious if either, hopefully off the top of your head, but also even more after the fact, we have been on social media for a long time, but in a very half-assed, just barely disorganized way. We have a Facebook page, we have...
I've been in some of the social media meetings, actually, over the past year.
So yes, so my question then is, what would you say, given that it's very chaotic, there are just so many ways it could be improved. Do you have an impression kind of all the things you're suggesting, if we were just making some modest changes, putting some modest effort in, what you would sort of say we might do first of all these.
Yeah, number one thing IASD could do right away, like tomorrow, is to show up consistently. Because if you talk to any streamer, any big content creator, if they take a few days off, they lose followers immediately. And so one of the great things about, and terrible things about social media is when you create a connection with people that inspires their confidence, your consistency in that connection is what's delivering the value. And so I think IASD has an amazing opportunity with all of these people putting out information. All IASD has to be is the hub and consistently deliver that information out. Making a post every single day would be great. I mean, think about me. A post every day may sound like a lot. I was making 3 posts a day, and I still generally try and keep to that schedule, 3 posts a day, Monday through Friday. That's just TikTok, and then I repurpose to other platforms too. So consistency is huge, and I think that'd be the number one thing right away, without having to worry about fancy edits or intros. Consistency.
Thank you. Yeah, recently we are doing that on Instagram, but we're not on me.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad.
Yeah, so
We'll connect. We'll connect. Yes.
Just a very quick question for Jesse. How do you obviously spend a lot of time on, so how do you generate revenue? Is it through traffic or through the
Revenue? You guys are getting paid? It's
time is valuable.
It is. So the revenue has to come off platform. I mean, I have 2.5 million followers. TikTok pays for content, but like last month I made $54 for an audience of 2.5 million. So you can't count on the platform itself. YouTube is much better. If you have a larger audience on YouTube, YouTube actually shares monetization 50-50 with you. So there's an opportunity there, but I'm not as big on YouTube. I blew up on TikTok. The monetization comes from speaking engagements, from being able to go to places like these and make connections, and then adding value to my counseling brand. So as a large person, it's easier for me to book an appearance on the news, which filters clients into my personal practice so my therapists can see them. So it's a secondary benefit because of advertising and credibility for my counseling practice. That's where I actually pay the bills.
Okay.
Yeah, great question though, thanks. It's tough.
Okay, I have a question that sort of relates to everything you've all been talking about, and that is there anything you'd like to say further about a healthy way to engage your dreams and your health and your working your way through the health system?
I guess I'll be super quick. The biggest advice that I give to other people on social media, like through the comment section, is people become frustrated with themselves with their dream content and their nightmares. The biggest thing that I encourage them to do to use their dreams effectively is to stop being angry with their dreams and say, what is this trying to tell me? Every symptom, whether it's anxiety or a nightmare or depression, is giving you valuable information about what's going on inside of you. And so instead of being ashamed or guilty or frustrated with the dream, if you can ask, what is this telling me that I didn't know before, that leads to valuable insight.
Thank you very much.
Jesse, my son is a content creator as well.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, well, there's content and there's content. There is the censors on YouTube are absolutely overwhelming. The censors on TikTok.
Censorship, you mean?
Yes, the censorship.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And he's doing politically active kinds of content production.
Good for him.
He uses humor quite a lot, and he's really funny. And it's hard to be funny and talk about some of these issues.
That's great.
But the kinds of censorship you see, not just in social media, but in the media in general, I never knew it was as much until my son brought it to my attention. So have you been hit with censorship?
Yeah, there's 2 levels of censorship for me. There's the ones that are just not accurate at all, like people who don't like what I say, so they report my video to TikTok and then it gets taken down, and I have to submit a counterclaim that says, hey, they said this was misinformation, but here's the research article I'm actually citing, and then they put it back up. So that's a pretty smooth flow there. So some people are just angry. But then other times, you use a key word that TikTok didn't like. And so you just have to get creative. So oftentimes, I'll be talking about a sex dream, but that says sex in it. So, okay. I mean, how do you talk about, certain sexual acts inside of a dream without saying those things? So you do have to get creative. And sometimes you use, like, instead of typing SEX, you'll do $, times. So you get creative. You get creative, yeah. So there needs to be some censorship. Like, I mean, there's definitely some horrible things online, so we need that. But I think it's a constant conversation between the creators and the platform to try and find where that nice gray space is. And sometimes the creators do too much, and sometimes the content platforms do too much. So it's a continuing navigation. Yeah.
You would be much stronger in this.
I'm trying my best, yeah.
Oh, no, I know, and I appreciate your success, and I wish
Thank you.
he would be more able to norm it, but he's, ain't gonna happen.
I hear you.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, thank you all for being here, and this is a very challenging time to stay awake and alert and attentive, so I gratefully appreciate that. And anything else? No? Okay.
Thank you.